In the previous part, Jinan defeated the robbers who attacked them and learned from one of them that Mr. Tak ordered them. Lee told Jin Young that Master Tak was in love with her and wanted her to be his wife. When they arrived in the city, they were met by Mr. Tak, and he turned out to be a very nasty person. Jinan saw a stranger in the palace who possessed incredible abilities and knew how to teleport. Jin Young found this man, and found out that his name is Young Guan, and he is studying ancient writings. Young Guan showed Jin Young a wall with ancient writings, and asked him to help him decipher them. But Jin Young said that his father could do it. They went on their journey to accompany Mrs. On the way, they met bandits who were dressed as mountain dwellers, and attacked the carriage. The battle began, and Jung Guan showed his martial arts, and helped fight off the bandits. Jin Young returned to his home where he lived as a child, and learned from his nanny that his uncle was dead and his father was missing. He made a promise to himself that he would find his father and punish all those responsible for the murder of his uncle and the kidnapping of his father. Jin Young met with his old friend, and he treated him to tea. He had not seen this man for a very long time and felt a little embarrassed in his presence, but nevertheless, he calmly sat at the table and carefully listened to everything that this man said to him. The man looked at the guy and smiled. He said that he was very glad to see him again. Jinan, too. I was very happy to see this person in front of me. He said that he heard the news that he was promoted to lord after he found the thief of the Golden Temple. General Yuk was sitting in front of him drinking tea. Jin Young at that moment congratulated his friend on his promotion. Jin Young thanked this man for helping the nanny all the time, while none of his family was in town, but General Yuk said that there is nothing to thank him for, because all he does is only tell the nanny the location of the prisoner. He admitted that all these years he felt guilty for not being able to save the boy and imprisoned him. Yuk was very surprised that the guy still returned to this city and decided to meet him and wanted to make amends, but he could only do this by telling information about his father. Jin Young was very interested in this, because although he knows everything that happened to his father during his absence, he wanted to know what happened to him and where he is now. Yuk said that this case about his father's disappearance has become very strange, and he will try to tell everything that I know. That the chamber in which the scientist Ko was located was in a common building, and it was impossible to open it from the inside. Jin Young made the assumption that his father was kidnapped, but he did not understand how this could be done. Yuk said that it was not a kidnapping, and it was not worth worrying about it. But the emperor himself personally observed his father, and the check was carried out very strictly. No one would think about Mr. Ko. But one day, a very strange incident happened. Someone decided to blow up the building, and the walls of the cell in which his father was sitting were destroyed by a powerful explosion. Jin Young made the assumption that his father escaped from prison by making a huge explosion in the cell and blowing up the walls. Yuk replied that most likely everything was exactly like that, and even the emperor himself was surprised when he found out about this case. He said that after escaping, all the search parties were sent to this mission, and they investigated but could not find anything. There were no leads. General Yuk personally searched for his father, but this did not give any results. No one knew where his father had disappeared. Jinan asked the general if he could personally conduct his own investigation in the palace, and the general was not ready to give him an answer to this question right away. He needed to think. Jin Young said that his father often left behind clues that a normal person would not be able to solve, and he made these clues in such a way that only Jin Young could read them. Yuk asked the guy how sure he was that his father could leave clues behind him. The guy confessed to the general that when the soldiers took him from the house for the first time, and he had already left clues in his office in which he worked, but only Jinan could solve them. Yuk crossed his arms over his chest and closed his eyes and sighed heavily. He replied that if everything is exactly as the guy says, then he will need to know for sure that Jin Young will share his findings with him. He lowered his head down and sighed heavily. Then the guy said that he would not be able to immediately tell the general about all the finds that he would find in the palace, because this would complicate his search for his father. Yuk was not happy with this answer, but he understood why the guy makes such a decision. He said that it would be difficult to convince him, but he would remember it nonetheless. Yuk said that it would be very difficult for one guy to enter the palace, because now all the people who are on the territory of the palace are constantly being checked. The general suddenly changed the subject and asked how reliable information he had that Jin Young had mastered real martial arts. He told the general a story that there was a grandfather on Chongandong Island with whom he lived in the same cell. This grandfather turned out to be a martial arts master, and he taught the guy all his skills. Yuk asked the boy what the name of this old man was, and made the assumption that this old man could be called Guyan Jin Young, was very surprised when the general called out his grandfather's name, and he couldn't believe that this man knew about him. General Yuk said that the island is under the scrutiny of the army, and he heard a lot about this old man. Due to the fact that the imperial services control absolutely everything, you can't even send a letter to this island because it will be read before being handed over to the prisoner. But the general was very reassured by the news that the boy was hooked up to this old man. He took a cup of tea in his hands and took a sip, after which he said that he was very glad to hear that the old man decided to share his knowledge and teach the guy martial arts. The general made a decision and said that he would give Jin Young a high rank so that he could complete this investigation, but Jin Young did not expect such a turn of events. Yuk explained to the guy that the palace would not let him in just like that. No one would give him permission to investigate this case. After all, he is an unknown person, and this institution is the pride of other officials responsible for the security of the palace. But if he gives him a decent position that will be on a par with the rest of the officials who are responsible for protecting the palace, then he will be able to investigate this matter, and no one will be able to present their claims to him. Near one of the hotels, there is a man with a displeased expression on his face, tall and holding his hands on his chest. He is waiting for someone. This man asks the man who just approached him why it takes so long to find out the location of that couple. His subject told that the couple that this man is looking for left this place, and now no one knows where they are. He said that the only information he could find was that the two were heading north from the fortress. The man took his subject by the collar of his shirt and lifted him up with one hand. He was angry that his subject spent a lot of time trying to get at least some information and could not even find out which road they left. These people he is looking for, he threw it on the ground and said that his subject has time for tomorrow to find all the information about them. If he fails to do this, then he will be killed. The subject replied that you would do everything to his strength in order to find information about these people. Jin Young and General Yuk approached the palace gate and stopped near the central steps that lead to the palace. Yuk said that they had already come to the place where they kept his father under lock and key, and pointed to the wall that was broken after the explosion. The general said that this hole is incredibly large, and the stones scattered in different directions after the explosion. Jin Young was very surprised at the room his father was sitting in, and he was delighted that his father had such strength to break such a strong wall. Jin Young entered this room and began to look around under his feet. He saw scattered notebooks and papers Jinin tried. What did his father do here to find out where he could leave clues? He is the village of the general. How hard it was for his father to sit in this prison. The general answered him that he knew nothing about it. Jinin said that it would be very strange if his father felt good here. It is unlikely that he would then want to make an explosion and escape from here. Yuk said that at first everything was just... This guy looked at the generals in surprise. He asked what this person had in mind. Yuk said that Scientist Ko didn't like his job. It looks like he was bullied and tortured for a very long time. But soon after his father was subjected to constant torture and bullying, something strange happened. The guy became very interested in the story of the general and listened to him attentively. Yuk often watched his father, and he had the feeling that this man was able to take possession of the emperor and control him. When the Scientist Ko asked the emperor for something, he always did everything for him so that he would not be asked. This caused some suspicions among many people who saw their connection. Scientist Company always had very strange wishes. Sometimes he asked that no one could enter his cell and refused all meetings. Sometimes he asked that his cell should always be clean and that special people always monitor the cleanliness in the cell. Every 3 or 4 days, the emperor came up with a new wish, always fulfilling them. Hundreds of rare old books were brought to him. Jin Young saw one of these books on the floor and decided to pick it up in order to take a closer look at what kind of book it was. Jinin asked the general what kind of books were brought to his father and what exactly he read in his room. because this information can help him move forward in the search for his father. The general asked the guy if his father could write down some clues in books or leave notes there so that they could later find him. Jinen said that this is all quite possible, because for some reason he needed so many books. It is unlikely that he could read them all because it would take a long time, for what then he needed these books if he did not leave notes. The general said that when all his books were taken out of the cell, they were checked very carefully. They wanted to make sure the books weren't soiled or damaged after being used by Scientist Co. Yuck suggested that these people who were checking the books would immediately notice some new entries in them and would report it to the emperor. Jinin said that this is a very good theory and thought that the emperor himself could constantly personally check. Jin Young closed the book and said that everything is not as simple as it seems at first glance, and he has one more thought about this. He said that there are things that even hundreds of people will not notice if they really want to, just because they don't know anything about it. The man continued his search and tried to find people who defiled the honor of his tower. His subjects returned to him and asked if he could tell him the new news that he had learned. He later said that intelligence had found out the location of these people, and now they could no longer follow their trail. The subject told that he lives on the mountain behind the northern gate, and you can get there in the near future. He ordered his one by one to immediately go to this place and find this person, but the subjects were afraid. They were ordered not to attack these people. He decided to warn his master that an attack without the order of the Lord could have a very bad effect on them, and they would be punished for it. He inflicted a strong blow in the chest to his subject for not wanting to follow his orders. He was angry with his subject for something that would take himself inappropriately and did not listen to his master. He ordered him not to talk nonsense and immediately show the way to this place one by one. There was nothing left but to simply follow the orders of his master Yuck. Ask the guy what he's going to do with all the finds he's found here. The general warned the guy that today it's too late to go for books, and even if they go to the library now, it will already be closed by the time they get to it. Jin Young replied that in that case, he just wants to look in this office and find some more clues. Yuck said that he would leave him here himself and he would go to make a report. The general warned the guy that his friend was waiting outside and it would be better for him to hurry up and not linger in this office. The guy replied that he would try to quickly look around here. On the walls of this office there were various inscriptions in the ancient language, and Jinnen stood right next to these inscriptions. He drew attention to various things that were in this room, and came to the conclusion that an investigation had already been carried out here in many things. Probably thrown away after the investigation, these things could be important for finding his father. All that was left in this room was of no value. They were ordinary items that his father used them. He looked around the room and could not find a single hiding place here, or a place in which he could hide on the secret message. But suddenly, on one of the walls of this house, he noticed something very strange and realized that the hint could be found in this very object. It was a pink painting that hung on the wall of this cell. The painting depicted a black and white tree, and strange inscriptions were written. The painting on the wall was unique in that it had the style of Shisowa Habul, which is the trinity of poetry, calligraphy, and fine art. He carefully examines this picture and reads the texts that were written there. One of the texts read on your hand the shadow of a bird, and after another one, and now there are two of them, but suddenly you will see a third bird. Shadow, in fact, there are only two of them. He began to read the poems that were written in this picture, or look for clues in them about where his father could be hiding. Jin Young noticed that all of the text in the picture was written by a child as a joke or was meant to be. But then he began to remember that he had already heard these words somewhere and they seemed very familiar to him, but he could not understand where when Jin Young was little, he constantly listened to his father, and his father told him that learning never ends. It is forever. Dad often told him about the Elder Scrolls, about the fact that it is impossible to study them all, but you can study forever in order to learn something new. He showed him one of these scrolls and said that at first glance it looks like bird tracks that the child drew in this letter. But if you look at these lines from the other side, then they hide the real soul of a person. Jinnen concludes that if you know one side, then you can understand the other side of these lines. In the meantime, He did not understand what was the meaning of these letters. He needed to find a clue that would help him solve this riddle that his father left. He turned around and saw that on the wall were written in the ancient language a hieroglyph and various inscriptions. But the guy did not understand what these inscriptions meant. Jin Young spent a lot of time in this room and left it only in the late afternoon. Young Guan said that he had been waiting for the guy at this place all day and was very tired. He asked him if Jin Young would like to go to the tavern with him. Guan asked the guy if he was going to go to sleep, or would he continue to search for his father all night. Jinan did not even know what to answer his friend to this question. His head was disturbed by very serious thoughts, and he would hardly be able to sleep today. He remembered the inscriptions that were on the wall and understood that one of them said impeccability. But what did his father want to say with this phrase? These were word games that Jin Young couldn't understand yet. He should have figured it all out, but nothing came to his mind. The guy could not stop thinking about it, and he focused all his attention on unraveling these symbols. Guan didn't understand why his friend didn't answer him anything, and walked silently all the time, and thought about something. Guan called his friend very boring due to the fact that he is not distracted from his problems at all, and cannot even do something more interesting than solving these symbols for a couple of minutes. A man began to go to meet them on the street except for them, and it was surprising that someone else was walking down the street at such a late time. Guan was wary when he saw this non-acquaintance in front of him. He felt that some kind of conflict could begin now. This stranger stopped right in front of them and wouldn't let them go any further down the street. The man asked these guys if they knew who crippled Mr. Do Chu Moon Guang, had no idea which Chu Moon this person was talking about. Surprised expression. The stranger decided not to understand this matter, and immediately wanted to attack these people in order to avenge them for Du Chu Moon. He delivered a very strong blow, after which Guak flew a few meters back. Jinen was very surprised when this stranger showed up and decided to attack them. He did not expect that he would have to fight now. Then this stranger decided to hit Jin Young, and before hitting you, he shouted to come here to avenge his friend. Jinen blocked his punch with his arm and prevented himself from getting hurt. He immediately flew back after blocking the blow. He needed to be as far away from his opponent as possible in order to control his attacks. But as soon as he moved away from his opponent, he saw that two more warriors armed with swords decided on him from above. But Jin Young managed to notice them in time, and therefore was able to evade their attack. The guys missed with their swords and could not deal damage. He noticed their clothes and began to suspect who these people might be and why they had come here to fight them. Jin Young asked these people if they were Bakma Fortress warriors. They decided not to answer his question, and instead a guy with a white headband said that their commander would take care of the master. They should deal with this boy. Jinen looked at these guys carefully and did not understand why they wanted to fight them so badly. Guan at that moment was sitting on the floor and holding his hand to his head. He was not ready for the fact that he would be dealt the first blow so quickly. He believed that any conflict can be resolved with words and agree on something. But he was very outraged that these people decided to start a conversation with the fists. The commander of these scumbags immediately ran towards the old man in order to inflict the next blow on him. He made a jump and focused all his magical energy in a strike on the old man. He was already ready for battle and was not ready to just give up or take damage just like that. Guan began to collect magical energy in his fists and strengthen them, and before striking, he warned that now is not the time to make noise because people are sleeping and they would not like to wake up from night screams. They hit each other, and a strong energy field appeared between them, which flew in different directions and created a loud noise. Guan flew back after landing this punch. He was thrown back by a strong energy wave. The stranger was much stronger, turned out to be at first glance after their blows. The earth began to crack, and a hole appeared in this place. He then said that he was very disappointed because he thought that the old man would be much stronger and did not understand what kind of grandfather this turned out to be. Such a strong warrior as his friend Guang said that this person is very arrogant if he believes that no one can defeat him. He got into a fighting stance and prepared for battle. Now the old man understood that he would have to fight seriously and give 100% in battle. Guan decided to strike back at his opponent and show him what he can do. He punched him right in the face, put all your power into your punch, but the commander decided to marry him right away. strike back, and also hit the old man in the face. He began to strike him with quick blows with his fists on the body. Guan did not expect this stranger to be so strong and realized that he needed to come up with a new battle tactic in order to defeat him. He dodged his punch and jumped back. Now he needed to wait for the perfect moment to land his next strike. Guan gave him a jab with his left hand right in the lower jaw, and usually after this blow any opponent lost consciousness and fell in a knockout. But this time, everything went wrong as usual, and the old man was very surprised that his punch did not knock out the opponent. This man didn't even move after taking damage. He was even able to grab the old man's hand. After that, he threw his opponent to the ground and inflicted very heavy damage on him. Guan lay on the ground and thought that it would be very difficult for him to continue the fight after he fell to the ground. He wanted to scream very loudly at the top of his voice, but it was very dangerous. Men again began to accumulate strength in his fist and wanted to deliver a finishing blow in order to destroy his opponent. He hit him with all his strength with his fist in the face, and the old man, after that, lost consciousness for a while. He began to accumulate his strength in the second fist in order to continue a series of attacks to finish off his opponent. He wanted to destroy once and for all, and did not understand why this old man C waved his friend. But he was not allowed to finish off the old man because another warrior flew into his body and threw him aside. At that moment, Guan woke up and saw that someone else had intervened in their fight and helped him fight off this crazy person. Jinan saved Guana, throwing this man aside for a while. He approached the old man and asked if everything was all right with him, but the old man did not yet know what to even answer him because he was shocked by what had just happened. Jinan helped the old man to insert from the ground, took his hand. Guan at that moment said that he was very grateful to his mentor for the fact that he was constantly beating him, and he was already used to it. The man rose to the ground, wanted to continue his fight, said that he did not expect this guy to be so strong, because all this time he thought that he was fighting against garbage that was stalling for time. Jinan immediately began to unleash a series of quick attacks in order to knock his opponent off balance. He did not expect that the guy would attack so quickly. He hardly had time to dodge his blows. Jinan was not afraid of this man because he considered him a weakling, just as weak as the two warriors he had just defeated. The guy began to inflict another series of fast, and so directly into the body of his opponent, from which he could not evade. He did not have time to block these attacks, and did not expect that the blows would be so powerful. He took all the blows to the body and felt severe pain. Jinan wanted to end this fight as soon as possible, so he used one of his strongest techniques that help him finish the opponent with one blow. This martial arts technique was taught to him a long time ago by his teacher in prison, and now it's time to put this technique into practice. The blow was so strong that after it there was a very bright flash of blue color, and this man in the wall of the house who was behind him, Jinan was waiting for the smoke to dissipate after this man collided with the wall and wanted to see what was happening to him now and what state he was in. The walls of the house were broken. This man was sitting on his knees and blood was dripping from his head. He received very strong damage and could not understand where you came from. In this guy, there was such great power. He expected that his opponent would be twice as weak. He was ready to fight to the last drop of blood, because he simply had no other choice, and therefore he again began to collect energy in his fist in order to strike again. But Jinan was much faster than his opponent, and therefore immediately blocked his attack and delivered another strong blow, after which the walls of the house became even more broken. Jinan did not understand why this stranger wanted to fight them so much. He had already received enough damage to surrender to us. He continued to fight anyway. They broke another wall in the house, and now this house resembles an abandoned, ruined building. Although literally 10 minutes ago it would have been a good, beautiful house, Guan noticed that their opponent had disappeared. He asked the guy what happened to him. Jin Young said that this man ran away because he was no longer able to fight. Guan was surprised that this man even took his 2 servants before running away and disappeared so quickly that they did not even notice him. The demon was unhappy that these guys ran away like cowards. He wanted to get as much information out of them as possible in order to understand their motives. Jin Young suggests that these people were from Baekma Fortress, and that's why they were hunting for people from the association. but he still didn't understand why they decided to attack them now. Most likely they decided to make this attack because of the situation that happened in the forest, and that's why they want revenge so much. But if you don't continue it, you want to attack them, then there will be very big problems, and you need to hurry. They went to the library, but there were already people in green kimonos who were constantly studying books. These people were constantly moving books from one place to another looking for some new sources of information. Guan had never been to such places and saw such a large library for the first time. That there are so many books here, made sure that this library is really worthy of the imperial palace. Jinan found the department in this library that they needed and told them to go there. A man in a green kimono with a white hat sat near this dress and wrote something in his notebook. This man was responsible for helping visitors find the right books. Jinan approached this man and decided to ask him how to find one of the books he is looking for. Library worker. Ask the guy what exactly he is interested in. Genyan replied that he arrived on the orders of the Lord. He needs to find out a few things, and the Lord should have warned this person about such a visit. The librarian replied that he was told that a recently arrived official was coming, and he received a message about this morning, so he will help the guy find what he is looking for. He was told that the official would be interested in the ancient books that were taken from Scholar Ku's prison cell, and Jin Young replied that everything was correct. He asked the guests to wait a little while. He and the rest of the library scientists collected all those books that were seized from the prison cell. After 10 minutes, he came and put a whole mountain of books on the table and said that this was only a third of all the ancient writings that were seized. He said that as soon as they finished with these books, the rest of the books would be brought to them. Guan said that it would be difficult for him to read all these books while in the library, and he would like to change this place to some more convenient one. Jinan has already begun to study the ancient writings and said that unfortunately, they cannot go outside the library with these books, and therefore it is better for them to start studying right away. They spent the whole night in this library, and when the morning came, they still continued to study the ancient writings. They tried to find the answer in at least one of these books, but everything was unsuccessful. There was no information that could help them find his father. Certain said that it was all unsuccessful and made no sense in these books. There was no important information. Jinan is already very tired because he spent the whole day studying all these books and did not find a single clue. He put the book on the table and closed it. Her eyes were already starting to hurt from constant reading, and he realized that he needed to take a break. His hands began to fall due to the fact that he could not find anything, and among the hundreds of books that he needed to read, the clue could be hidden in one of them, and whole years could pass in order to find. Guan also did not find anything in these books. He believed that this was just a waste of time that would not help in any way. Jinan confessed to the old man that he found a few clues in these books, but it still wasn't enough. In the very contents of these books, there was nothing that could be useful to them or any sign that his father could hide there as a clue. He thought that his father could just hide his message by using the order of the titles of the books he often used. If they manage to get the books in the right order, then he can find out what message his father left, and they will be closer to solving it. Jinan thought that he was waiting for him when the guy came in the yard and wanted to leave a message there that only he could decipher. He began to match the verse that hung on the wall with the hieroglyphs that were drawn by his father. If they were combined to decipher, then there should have been some kind of meaning. These hieroglyphs meant heaven and earth. If you combine them together, you can find the third meaning, that is, your body. Certain tried to understand the guy's train of thought. But so far, he didn't succeed because he couldn't correctly determine the solution to this mystery in his head. But suddenly he realized that his father learned the technique of absorbing the energy of heaven and earth, and then learned the technique of controlling the soul, which means that his father was a higher level than Jinan himself. Jinan continued to think that his father might well have learned a martial arts technique called absorbing the energy of heaven and earth and manipulating the soul. And if his suspicions were correct, then his father would have studied this technique much deeper than the guy and would have learned the new abilities of this combat technique. Thanks to this technique, he could safely escape from the palace and blow up the wall of his prison cell. But why didn't his father return home to see his nanny and give her a message for Jinan? Most likely, he was simply afraid of the pressure of the emperor, and understood that if he met with the nanny, then the imperial army would come to his house and arrest the nanny for complicity in his escapes. But his father would hardly have disappeared and left one nanny. He got up from his chair and decided to walk in order to once again about everything think and find the moment in which he is mistaken. Jinnen went outside and was surprised that in this library, absolutely no one bothered him to study the books that his father read, and the operator did not interfere in his search. Even though General Yuck gave the guy special privileges, these privileges still make no sense to the emperor, and he could calmly interfere with the investigation. But the emperor, for some reason, does not interfere in this process and allows them to further investigate this case. Apparently, he just wants him to find his father and then arrest him again. They again returned to the cell in which his father was in order to watch everything carefully again. The general once again asked the guy what he wanted to find here. He didn't understand why they came to this room again. Apparently, it was still possible to find some clues or evidence here. Jinnen said that he managed to find out something in the library. He wants to test his knowledge in this room now and make sure that he was not mistaken. But as soon as he entered the prison cell where his father was sitting, he noticed something very strange and did not understand what had happened during his absence. The inscriptions that were all this time on the walls. They disappeared somewhere, and apparently someone erased them while they were not here. In this room, absolutely everything was removed and wiped off all the inscriptions that his father left on the walls. This was done in order to confuse their investigation. General Yuck said that it was necessary to immediately report the incident to the minister because someone without permission invaded this room and removed all the inscriptions that could help the investigation. They came to the minister and told about everything they saw this morning, and the minister listened to them carefully, after which he was very surprised. Minister asked the guy who he is and made the assumption that he was the same son of the scholar Ko about whom General Yuck spoke so much. The minister introduced himself and gave his name. His name was Konstantin Songak. He was the Minister of War and the head of the Golden Guard. Songak turned his attention to Guang, who was sitting to his right. The old man felt uncomfortable with her gaze. Yes, the Minister Songak asked the guys if they have a suspect who could have done this. He suggested that it was probably the work of Wang Haye, who is the leader of the spy squad. Yuck explained that the intelligence corps of the palace, which stands with the Golden Guard, their job is to prevent corruption and uprisings in the government. But in the detention room, Captain Yuck's guards were investigating because it's in their compensation. The minister said that recently there have been many strange behaviors in the intelligence corps. The minister said that he called them all. Yes, only because he had something to say to the son of the scientist Ko, but this information was personal. But before he told everything to the guy, he had one more offer that the boy could not refuse. He said he wanted to put Jinnen in a senior position so that it would be easier for him to handle this investigation. The minister said that with such a title, no one would interfere with him, and he would be able to calmly engage in this investigation, and do not worry about the fact that someone will follow him or constantly interfere. Jinnen was very surprised when the minister offered him to take a leadership position and asked if this decision would be correct, and whether he would be allowed to do it. The minister replied that he was allowed to do it by the emperor himself. Jinnen was very surprised when he heard that the emperor himself had allowed him to do this, and asked what else they had talked about with the emperor. But without waiting for an answer, the guy decided to ask another question and asked how much the minister had heard about him from General Yuck. The minister replied that he knew enough about this young man, but the most important thing he needed to know was that his father was in prison. And the guy himself. At a young age, he went to Cheongundong Island. Jinnen understood that there was some kind of catch in this whole situation. He decided to ask one more question to the emperor. He wanted to know why the emperor was behaving so strangely, because His Majesty sent the boy to prison. At a young age, and now the emperor offers him a very important position in the palace. But the guy did not understand how he could allow him to be left unattended in such a leadership position. The minister understood the boy's anxiety about this topic and was aware of the whole situation, so he decided to put everything on the shelves and explain to the guy that everything is not at all like he thinks the minister explained to the boy, that a lot of time had already passed since he was sent to prison. And first he needed to understand that the past emperor, about whom the young man is now talking, is not in his place. Now His Highness the Crown Prince ascended the throne and is responsible for this situation. Jinnen asked the minister, "Where is the last emperor now? And what is happening to him now?" The minister replied that no one now knows exactly what is happening with the former emperor. They conducted an investigation, and there is some information about where he is now. He said that according to rumors, the emperor has now gone to Jianghu. This is the place where all the hermit gurus and monks are. People come to this place to find peace and solitude. Jinnen said that she did not believe in this place. She told him all her life that this is just a fictional place that only happens in fairy tales. But the emperor explained to him that this place really exists. No one in the empire understood how this man could deceive the imperial family and disappear without a trace. No one is even sure that he is still alive, and all that is known about him is just rumors and conjectures. But the minister still managed to get some information on this case and said that one of the clans contacted the emperor on this information was also not confirmed. Jinnen asked the minister about which clan he was talking about, because it could get their cause off the ground. It was a clan of heavenly blood. They know little, but they were interested in the gold plates and stone tablets that the emperor was trying to decipher. This is a shadow clan, so we have very little information about them. The emperor said Jinnen understood that this clan is interested in precisely those ancient writings that the emperor although translated with the help of his father, and this is all interconnected. The Shadow Clan also wanted to translate these ancient writings and learn the ancient martial arts techniques that were laid down in these writings in order to become stronger. A colonel from Jianghu approached the former ruler of the empire in order to unravel the mysteries of the golden plates and stone tablets. When the emperor gained the power to remove his greed, he went there to cooperate with this clan. The minister told him everything he knew about this case, and about the former emperor, but then he added that there is another reason why he gave the guy such a high position. He asked him to go to Jianghu to find out what intelligence corps is for you, because this could cause problems for the empire, and no one except Jin Young could cope with this task. Jinnen was surprised that the minister asks him to be a scout and learn all about the secret plans of this clan of their intelligence corps. The minister admitted that he was putting the guy at very great risks, but only in this way. At the cost of the life of one guardsman, I will not be able to get at least some information about this case and the plans of the clan. He was sure that this clan was plotting against the empire, because they constantly send masters. Under the pretext of watching Jianghu, this raises certain suspicions. The minister is sure that these people have discovered the secret and are afraid that someone else will find out. So he is trying to bury her in this place and not let anyone know about her. The minister could not allow this to happen and leave everything as it is, because these people will cause real chaos in the ruling dynasty. And besides the problems of the empire itself, this case is directly related to the guy, so he should be interested in this. But Jin Young asked, how is this directly related to him? The minister said that these people are very afraid of everything that his father knows, and therefore his son will be the best way to scare them. General Yuck said it was time for them to leave, and the minister calmly allowed them to do so, said that they had already been here for a long time, and he told them everything he knew. Guan began to suspect something was wrong here, and before leaving, he wanted to ask the minister for something. Guan said that the minister's face was very familiar to him, and asked if they could see each other before. The minister was furious at such a question, and said that this was the highest impudence, because all this time he thought that Guan was just pretending not to know him, but in fact he really did not remember him. Guan was really very surprised when he realized that they really knew each other, and the minister knew him personally. The minister at that moment was ready to explode with anger. He said that you need to be a real fool not to recognize your relative. Being next to him, Guan began to feel very uncomfortable, and realized that he had heard the minister's name before, and it was really very familiar to him. The minister asked the general to leave the room with the boy and leave them alone, because they needed to talk in person. Jinnen bowed to the minister, and said that in this case they would already go and leave and chat together. Guan did not want to be alone with this person in the room, but it was already late. The minister said that they had a very serious conversation, and this conversation would take a long time. Jin Young left the two of them in the room, closed the door on the street. The general was already waiting for him. Yuk was very surprised, because he did not think that his acquaintance seemed to be relatives of the Minister of War. Jin Young was also surprised, but he knew that his friend had previously held a high position. It was not supposed that his friend occupies such a high position, and that his relatives seemed to be the Minister of War. The minister, before letting these people go to begin their task and set off, decided to convey something to them in parting Jinen. Ask the minister what it is and why he wants to give this scroll to him. The minister explained that this is not just a scroll, but a letter that needs to be delivered to one person. Jin Young took this letter and asked who exactly he should give it to. The minister replied that this letter should be given to a very old friend whom he had not seen for 20 years, but had heard that his friend lived in those parts. He said that it was rather eccentric, but there are very few smart people like his friend in this world, so if the guy still manages to find him, it would be good if he gave him a letter. It would be a great honor and help from the minister, and this person could help him in investigating this case. His friend's name is Xing Guan, but people in Jianghu usually call him a hermit, and don't particularly like meeting him. According to the rumors that reached the minister a year ago, his friend lived on Mount Mudan, and if his judgments are correct, this person is still located exactly there on this mountain. Jinan said that he heard a lot about different hermits, but never saw them live, and asked how this person can help him, and if he wants to help him at all. The minister said that this person simply would not have a choice. How to help him and his help can always be counted on, only it is important to find him. Jinan stayed at the same hotels that were found on the outskirts of the city. He went out into the street. It was already at night. He decided to take a walk. He looked around and could not understand what he should do now. Something disturbed his mind and heart. In front of him was a road that led into the forest, and the guy looked at it for a long time. Demon Certain said that they have a very long way to go tomorrow, and it would be better for the guy to go and sleep instead of walking down the street at night. Jinan said that he feels terrible when he is inactive, and because of this, he cannot sleep calm down. The demon asked him why he feels this way, because everything should be fine. But Jin Young said that he himself doesn't know why he feels this way, and can't answer this question for himself. He was already ready to leave, but he had to wait for his friend to finish talking to the minister. A man approached Jinun and said that he heard that they entered the Golden Guard, suggested that now they are not very busy with various affairs. It was the same little brother of Mr. So he greeted the guy and said that they had not seen each other for a long time, and that it was not easy for him to find the place where Mr. Ko was staying. Jin Young greeted Mr. Ha and asked why this man was looking for him. Ha told him not to be afraid of him, and he didn't want to do anything wrong. He confessed that he came here because he had a very important conversation with Jin Young-san. Ha admitted that he did not even tell his sister that he came here and no one knows about his absence. Jin Young admitted that the man was not even close with this man and did not understand why he came here and at least talked to him. Apparently this man had a serious matter since he decided to come here. Ha asked Jin Young if he knew about the Skyblood clan, and if so, then they would have a conversation about it. Jin Young was very wary of this person because they trusted him and thought it was all very strange. He said that this was the first time they heard about this clan and did not know anything about it. But the lord who stood in front of him was very surprised by such an answer. Ha was upset because his interlocutor did not want to be frank with him and said that he wanted to go straight to the point and explain what was the matter of his visit. It was hard for him to talk about it, so he paused a little before saying what the essence of the whole problem was, but he still made up his mind and said that his brother and sister decided to secretly make a deal with the Heavenly Blood Clan, and he considered it important to tell Lord Jinan about this. He said that his brother and sister are going to invest an absurd amount of money in the Phantom Clan. Although this clan is not even known in Jianghu, it all looks very strange. He was worried that if things didn't go according to plan, or if something bad happened, it would not only have a great impact on the association, but also harm the Sky Dragon fleet. He said that he didn't know anything about this clan. But if these two are interested in investing their money in this clan, then they should not ignore this fact, and Mr. Jin Young should be interested in it. Jin Young asked this man for what reason he tells him all this. Ha replied that there was no particular reason for this. He just decided to share this information with the master, because he thought that he might be useful. He said he wants to be friends with Jin Young, and that's the only reason he decided to come here and tell him about this situation. This situation alerted the guys. He thought about it all the time. He could not understand what the people from the association were striving for. It seems that no one knows what is happening in that lair of snakes. He addressed these words to the very man who recently attacked them. He had long noticed that this guy was following him and was somewhere nearby. The Bekma Fortress assassin was by his side during this time, and he was a little surprised when he found out that the guy had been aware of his presence all this time. Jinan asked this man what he wants from him. And why is he following him? Because he wouldn't come here just like that, knowing that there is no point in fighting for him because he will lose again. The killer said that he had no reason to hide and he came here to finish his job. He wanted to defeat Genyan, and after his victory, take him with him. This was the order of his master, which he was obliged to fulfill. He had already violated one of his master's orders and couldn't just follow the guy. He betrayed his face, and now all that remains for him is to defeat the guy and bring him to his master. The killer understood that he was fighting this guy one-on-one, a very risky undertaking because their forces are unequal, but he had no other choice because he was discovered, and now it was necessary to meet face to face. He was ready to make any sacrifice in order to defeat his opponent and take him away with him. He simply had no other choice. Jin Young admitted that he was very surprised at such persistence, because last time he beat him to a pulp, and the guy could not understand why such people can never stop. The killer started gathering all the energy and channeling it into his fists in order to start the fight. He was serious about fighting this guy. When he had accumulated enough strength, he made a sharp dash towards his opponent to deliver the first blow. He was sure that this time it would be completely different, but nevertheless, he still couldn't hit the target because the guy dodged in time and didn't put much effort into his dodge. His punch had incredible power, but still he couldn't hit his target, and all that power was directed to the wrong place and he wasted his energy. The killer put a lot of energy into his punches, but it was pointless because he didn't hit his target. Jin Young constantly dodged all of his punches. Jinan made his counterattack, but this man managed to block it in time with his palm. And he still managed to land his blow right on the guy's chest, and this blow was very painful. Jinan was unable to parry this blow, and so he flew back a few meters, but he still managed to stay on his feet. This fighter kept throwing his next punches. He didn't want to leave his enemy alone, because in that case, he definitely wouldn't have won the fight. They fought at night in the woods, and he hit the guy really fast. Jinan could not withstand such pressure and barely had time to block his blows. The killer was able to grab the guy by the collar of his shirt and lift the air with one hand. He threw it at the nearest tree, which was nearby, and when the guy crashed into this tree with his back, the tree broke. Jinan took very heavy damage after colliding with a tree and fell to the ground. He couldn't even get up after such an attack. The killer began to feel that his body was experiencing strange sensations, as if some kind of strong, magical energy was passing through it. His body is otherwise pierced by a magic chain. This chain dealt him incredibly strong damage. Magic chains bound the body of the killer and did not allow him to move. He was trapped. Jinan unknowingly used his dark magical energy and thought it was for the best, because he had one important business with this guy. He dealt him a very strong blow with fire and burned his body. The fact that this killer was closed traps only helped the guy resist him. Jinan came closer to this killer and said that he had a few questions he wanted to ask. The man said that he was not going to give up just like that, and would not tell him anything even if he mocked him. But Jinan did not agree that this man was still resisting him. He stepped on his foot right on the chest and did not let him breathe. Jinan was not going to forgive the person who attacked him twice, and he usually kills such people and does not give any chance for mercy. And it was for this reason that he asked the killer to answer him as honestly as possible, so as not to force the guy to mock him. Guan asked the guy what happened to him at dawn and why he was in the forest for so long. He wondered where he found this killer and didn't understand why they should follow him. Jinan said that this man will take them to the fortress, and then they will be able to personally talk to their leader, who for some reason wants to kill them. Jinan said that he didn't do anything like that in the forest, or that he only spoke very sweetly and sincerely with this man. He kindly agreed to lead them to the fortress, and from that moment, this killer changed his intentions. He continued to mock this guy and joke with him, but the killer did not answer because he himself was not comfortable with the fact that he had again lost the battle and had to obey this man. Suddenly, on their way, they saw something unusual and decided to stop in order to better understand the situation. In the fox, everything was scattered on the ground. Dead people were lying, and there was an overturned carriage. Apparently, there was a fight here and someone attacked the carriage. Guan approached the body of the killed man, touched his hand, and noticed that he was still warm, which meant that only an hour had passed after their death. Their bodies are too clean for those who fought, and judging by their clothes, these are ordinary wars. The killer took the sword of one of these soldiers and said that they must have been soldiers from Peng, and Jin Young was surprised that this man knew them. But he said that he did not know them, and understood it was only by their sword, because there would be an ornament on it that proves their belonging to this place. He took the Hongyuan sword in his hands and showed the symbols that were depicted on it. These symbols mean that the warrior belongs to Penga. They noticed that the blade of the sword was absolutely clean, which means that they were attacked suddenly, and they did not even have time to use their weapons in order to fight back. Guan made his assumption that if these warriors were really from this city, then they were strong people and known all over the world. They could not be defeated by some ordinary robbers, and would hardly have been allowed to die without a fight. Most likely, their opponent was much stronger than them. Jinan did not want to just leave the corpses of these people in the forest, and he suggested the idea of going through the mountain ranges, because if they go this way, and I can't meet the followers of the path of liberation, ask them to take care of the dead bodies of these people. But suddenly the guy felt something very strange and turned his head around. He had never experienced such sensations before. He became scared from the fact that he noticed this. He looked deep into the forest and realized that the wind was luring him there, and he felt uncomfortable because of this. Guan asked what was happening with the guy and why he was behaving so strangely, and the guy answered him that he felt that someone was following them from behind the forest and was doing it very discreetly. The killer said that most likely the criminals who killed these people can follow them, but the guy was sure that this is something other than just criminals. He suggested that they get out of here as soon as possible because something terrible is happening here and they should leave here. On the fields there were only corpses of people, an overturned carriage. There was no one else here. Suddenly a man appeared and began to walk near the overturned carriage. He was alone here and was looking for something. Demon voice. Ask this man if he could find anything here. But the man did not answer. He said that he was a little late and that they had already killed all the warriors, so he could not find anything here. This man had to come up with a new plan in order to figure everything out, but for now he said that everything should be reported to his lord. He was looking for a man named Yoma and had to find him at all costs, but so far he has lost his track and cannot do anything. He had incredible powers, was surprised when that guy was able to spot him from such a long distance. It was the first time he had seen someone with such incredible power. He wanted to drag this guy into his business and ask him to help him find the person he was looking for. The master was furious when he heard that his people were killed in the forest. He wanted to know absolutely everything, how it happened, and why they lie dead in the forest. He wanted to know who killed them. The people who told him the information said that little is known about this and about the death of people in the forest. Mr. Jin Young, he found a broken wagon when he was heading from north to south and said that there were no survivors and informed the followers about this. They replied that the followers of the path of liberation called him a government official and therefore they could trust his words. But the Lord was surprised that the government official himself noticed the dead bodies in the forest. He said that this is how the government official reported it to them. However, the people in civilian clothes did not want to reveal their identities and follow or were unable to find out more information. The master wanted to know what is happening with the object that was transported in this wagon, The followers could not answer him anything about this, because nothing was known about this subject. The gentleman asked them what was the probability that these people who reported the news discovered the body. They answered that at the moment nothing can be said for sure. Mr. said that he must personally go and see everything with his own eyes. Only the fourth and fifth in succession will go with him. The rest must wait for the next instructions. But the followers said that there was no need to act personally, and he could stay in the building. They themselves would do everything for him. But he could not ignore this problem, because his brother and nephew died there. He lost children and important things. People's lives are at stake, so he personally must completely cope. An old man who was his uncle entered the room in which this meeting was held and said that for him he was a younger brother for his uncle himself. This man was a son. The old man said that he should personally go and see his son and asked not to forget that the head of the house has many responsibilities about how to protect the family. The gentleman did not know what to answer his uncle, but he wanted to object to him because he felt that he also deserved to go there. Sarek asked to go there personally because it could be his last trip before his death. He would like to see his son at least dead and asked to be allowed to do this. The master allowed his uncle to do this, but ordered that guards and other people accompany him. Jinan, along with his team, wandered through the forest, looking for the right path to the south. A man was watching them all the time. A man watched their every step and did not let them go for a second. He wanted to know who these people were and where they were going. He was very interested in getting to know these people and persuading them to help him. But at some point, he saw that the guy had disappeared somewhere. He did not understand how this guy got out. So quickly, disappear type of eyes because he was closely watching him all this time. Jinan was behind him all this time. He knew that he was being followed, and he wanted to know why this person was watching them so closely. He is very surprised when he saw this guy behind him, and did not know what to do in this situation, because he was taken by surprise. Jinan grabbed him by the neck and decided to throw him to the ground. He fell to the ground with this stranger and started a fight. No one expected it to happen so quickly, and they didn't even have time to notice how the guy disappeared somewhere. For Nick, everything happened so quickly that they did not even understand what was happening here and why there was such a loud explosion behind them. This man was delighted that the guy noticed him and grabbed him. He first saw someone with such incredible strength. Jin Young said that he had a very good sense of the presence of a person near him and asked why this person had been following them all this time. The stranger immediately got down to business and did not even talk for a long time. He said that he had deals with these guys and he would like to ask him for one favor. He said that this case is connected with those people who lie dead in the forest near the carriages, and he needs the help of this guy to sort out this issue. Jin Young asked why he should help him and how he wants to interest him, because he has other things to do now, and he doesn't want to do other tasks. The stranger said that he could help in the search for the clan of Heavenly Blood, and if this guy helps him find the killers of these people in the forest, then he will show the way to this clan. The stranger told that the people who killed the warriors in the forest near the Karyats were members of this bloody clan, and now the guy should be interested in sorting out this matter. 3 exorcists that had been hiding for a very long time appeared suddenly in the forest all at the same time. This alerted him. He said that he needs to find one of these guys, and he will help him pursue the Skyblood clan. Therefore, he once again asked the guy if he would fulfill his request. Jin Young replied that he didn't even have time to find out his name, and everything happened so fast that he can't immediately give an answer. The stranger still won the favor of this guy, and said that his name was Wijihan Jin Young, said that they urgently need to look in one place. It won't take long, so if this person is willing to wait, then help him in finding these people. Wijihan replied that he would be happy to go along with them and wait until they had completed all their business. It was important for him that this guy helped him in investigating this case. In the room sat an old man, and around him were warriors in red robes. One of them went up to the old man and said, "Uncle, we found the man you were talking about 2 hours ago. He was walking with the commander through the forest." The old man was very glad to hear this news and said that if everything is as this man says and not the fortresses are being built, they now need to hurry in order to come to this place as soon as possible.